All right. Hello, everybody. welcome. We still got some folks joining in. We'll take another minute. But before we get started and start talking about my top deal finding strategies, let me know in the chat as people are starting to join. Let me know in the chat what your purchase price, your target purchase price budget is if you're looking to find deals. If you're not looking to find deals, not sure what you're doing here. Maybe you're just here to listen. Awesome. But anyway, that would be kind of cool. But I'm sure most of you here were the purpose. So welcome, everybody. Let me know in the chat. Love to see the responses, and we'll get started in 1 minute. Just as some folks are starting to trickle in, we will get going here. So my name is Kenny Bedwell. I am the founder of STR Insights, and we help people find profitable short-term rental deals all around the country. And so today, what we're going to be talking about is how to find profitable properties in 30 days or less. So go ahead and input in the chat what your target purchase price budget is, and I will start looking at it. So it looks like we've got people up to 450, 750, 100K. Okay. Is that a purchase price of 100K or you have 100K cash, Joanna? 550, 950, up to 500, 1.5 to 1 million, 1.5. All right, John. 750, 550, 500K-ish. Okay. All right. A lot of 500 to 570. Yeah, that's pretty common. 500 to 700, I typically see a lot. 750 to 900 is probably the next range. And then like a million, 1 to 1.2 would be follow after that. So, Mahesh has 3 properties at 1 million. So is that 3 properties for a total of 1 million or 3 properties at $1 million each? So anyway, all right, cool. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me get my screen up here. Okay, there we go. So Yep, looks like we're kind of the numbers have settled for the attendees. So go ahead and put in the chat there. And then for those of you who are looking, so the focus and everything I'm going to be talking about in the next uh, hour with you is how to find deals in 30 days or less for this year. So this is all very, very important and going to be super helpful information. But it's relevant for this year. Okay. What I mean by that is the information some of the stuff I'm going to share with you could work next year, but the strategies could be slightly different. So I'm sharing information. If you're looking to buy a property by the end of this year, this is how you can do it. This is the strategies. This is how I and my team are looking for deals and how we're able to find them very quickly. Okay. And then at the very end of this, if you feel like this is the information I give you, I'm literally going to break everything down for you exactly how I do it to a T. But the information I'm going to give you, if you feel like, okay, cool, Kenny, that sounds like a lot, and maybe I don't want to do this on my own and I need your help, I have a way I can help you. Okay. And I'm going to be helping a couple individuals. And so if you pay attention till the end, I'll share with you how you can work with me one-on-one, and how I'm helping people. So, but let's dive into it. Okay. So a little bit background on myself. I, like many of you, are pretty normal. Obviously I like, some shirts, dad shirts is what my wife calls them. I've got 2 girls and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. But one of my favorite things to do is to teach and educate on topics that I'm qualified to do. So, but on topics that I'm passionate about, which is finding short-term rental deals. Okay. I have I've had 6 properties. It kind of varies. Right now I'm at 5 technically, about to be another 6th one. But I've scaled over time. When I first got started in investing in 2017, I bought a duplex in downtown Buffalo, New York, and I transformed that into a portfolio. I've gotten actually rid of all of my properties in Buffalo, New York. I still have one in New York, but I've scaled. I have properties in North Carolina, New York, Kentucky, Texas, Arizona, and New Orleans. So all over the place. In every single one of the properties that I own, the smallest one is 5 bedroom. All of these properties generate at least $175,000 or more. And most of them generate over $300,000. Okay. So I've got some big ones and I've got some very, very, like, what I would call cash cows. And in fact, most of them are cash cows. My smallest one that I have that's in New York has the best net ROI out of all of my properties. Okay, I bought that property for $350,000 and it nets $80,000 a year. Nets. Not a net is the cash that goes in your pocket at the end of the year after you paid all your expenses, your mortgage, and all your other payments. That is your net. So I have some really, really, really cool properties, and I know what I'm doing when it comes to doing deals, and I'm still buying today. Okay, so we're gonna jump into this, and let's go and get started. So that's a little bit about me, but one thing I want to make abundantly clear: I have been helping people find deals officially since about 2021. Okay. And I've done this. Where have I found deals? I've found deals in over 28 different states. Now, it doesn't mean there are deals in other states. It's just where I personally help people find deals. But the point of this is I'm looking everywhere, and you can find deals everywhere. Okay. But there's always a caveat, right? There's always the but. The amount of time and effort in searching for deals in certain markets is higher than in other markets. Okay. So for example, if I want to buy a deal in Orlando, Florida, it's going to take me I would say more than that. I would probably say like 5 to 6x what it would take me to find a deal in maybe Kentucky or North Carolina. All right. Because the deals are harder to come by in a very saturated market like Orlando, Florida. Okay. So the lesson that I'm going to teach you guys about, because we're going to talk about markets and how to find the right markets and all this good stuff, isn't that you shouldn't look in certain places. It's just, where is your time more valuably spent? Okay. So I talk to a lot of people and they're like, I only want to buy in this particular area. Help me find a deal. And I'm like, I'm not the man for the job. And they're like, why not? And it's because the area they're looking in and their criteria that they're looking for just is going to take too much time for me and really them to even find anything that's going to financially make sense. And so part of what I want to teach you today, besides my top 3 finding strategies, is at what point do you realize you need to pivot when you've spent too much time, sunk too much time looking at a particular market or looking for a particular type of property. So that's also, keep that in your back of your mind as we're going through this present or this workshop today. Okay. Thank you everybody for answering the chat, and we're going to use those answers to propel us through the rest of this. All right. So part of what we're going to cover is understanding like our budget, and then knowing the right markets to go into, and then being able to recognize deals. If we don't understand these 2 things first, we're never going to be able to recognize deals. It's that simple. Okay. And then we'll talk about this this concept of building a moat. But when we get to this recognizing deals, that's where I'm going to go over my 3 strategies that I personally use. Okay. So first, let's talk about understanding your budget. One of the biggest things, looks like my image is like, can I move that? Can you guys still see that? There we go. That's a little better. I'll go back. I don't want to be the big face and the talking head, and then there's the actual like slides there. But yeah, I know you can't see it. So this says pre-approval amount. Okay. I like that better. But anyway, so your budget is limited to 2 key things. Number one, your bankability, meaning what do you get pre-approved for by the bank? So when I'm looking for deals, I don't start looking for deals until I've spoken to a lender. Okay. It's that easy. If I don't know what I'm pre-approved for, how the heck, a lot of people make assumptions, but I can't tell you how many times people come back and they talk to the bank and they're like, oh, actually my budget just dropped by $200,000. So for some of you, I see a lot of people like 500 to 600K or 750. I've had a lot of times where clients are like, oh yeah, my budget's 750, purchase price budget is 750. But then they go get pre-approval from the bank, and all the banks are like, well, your bankability is only 400K. Well, that's a big difference. Okay. 400K isn't going to buy you the same type of property in the markets you might be interested in as a property that's at 750, right? So number one is understanding what you can afford. Okay. And you need to go talk to a bank. But on top of that, I have this other key point I call affordability, because rarely is our purchase price budget the limiting factor. It's the second part, which is what I call our cash on hand budget. So for example, if I buy a property that's $500,000, I'm going to need money for a down payment, closing cost, any sort of like renovation or construction, a design and decor, like your furnishings, and amenities. Okay. I need all of that. Now, some of you are like, Kenny, what if we buy a turnkey property? Awesome. You buy a turnkey property and it already has those things. But is it going to actually be a deal that's turnkey? Probably not, right? You're going to have to add or invest into that property in some way. So every property is different. We know that there are properties that are gut rehabs, and there's properties where we need to just update the paint and the flooring and it's ready to go. And I call that lipstick on a pig. Okay. But the reality is our budget is actually going to be determined by our available cash on hand that we have to invest in the property. So keep in mind that if a bank approves you for $1 million, that doesn't mean that you can afford $1 million short-term rental that's going to be successful. All the things I'm going to teach you today is how to be successful with a short-term rental. It's a deal. It's all about deals. You can absolutely buy, if you get pre-approved for $1 million property, you can actually buy a short-term rental for $1 million. That doesn't mean it's going to cash flow. And my goal is to help you cash flow. So if I have a budget, it's going to be reflected based on my cash on hand for all those 5 things that I mentioned. Let's see, do I have another slide on this? Yes, I do. Okay, perfect. So When it comes to my budget, it's really about understanding your startup costs. Okay. That's what's going to dictate your affordability. So when we say startup costs, and I'm going to blow this up again so you guys can see it. We have design and furnishings, we have amenities, and we have construction costs. Those are the three key things that go into every single short-term rental. And when I say startup, it's like startup to launch it, right? Like the things you are investing into the property besides the down payment. So when we're looking at the startup costs, we have first our design and furnishings, and this is how you calculate it. In my opinion, I'll go back to this again because we can't see it here. It cuts it off because of my image, but 15, you should budget at least $15,000 to $20,000 per bedroom, not living room, kitchen, all that. This included in this number for design and furnishings. So if I have a 5-bedroom property, I'm probably going to spend at least $100,000 into the design and furnishings for it to be a top tier property. Okay. So if I'm going to buy a $500,000 property, for all of you who put that in the comments here, and I just told you, if I'm buying a 5-bedroom property for $500,000, then I need at least $100K for design and furnishings. Plus I need my down payment. All right. And if I'm doing best case scenario, 10% down, that's $50,000 plus maybe some closing costs. So we'll tack on an extra 10K for that. So $60,000 plus $100K in design and furnishings. That's $160K. And I haven't included any amenities and zero construction, meaning the property's pristine, ready to go. How realistic is that, right? So in reality, the rule of thumb I like to use, do I have it here? I do, perfect, is what I call the 20% rule. And I'm going to go back to the slide previous to talk about amenities and construction. So hold on. So the 20% rule says that 20% of the purchase price, I need to at least budget towards my design and furnishings, amenities, and construction costs. Not just construction can vary, right? That's the most variable one, depending on the property. But the design, decor, and amenities, 20%. So if I buy that $500,000 property, I should budget about $100,000 just for those two categories. These two categories here, right? Now, if you buy a $500,000 home, it's probably not going to be a 5-bedroom. So you're not going to spend $100,000 into design, decor, and amenities. You're going to spend something much less. But you still have, furnishings, excuse me, I didn't say amenities, but you still have to pay for amenities. The hot tub, maybe a sauna, the game room, the movie theater room, all these things that we know we have to add today just to compete in the current market. So let me pose a question, and I don't want a response in the chat. I want you to ponder on this for a second. When it comes to your budget and what you put, so 500 or 600 or whatever, based on what I just told you, do you actually have the cash for that purchase price budget? And if the answer is no, then what should it realistically be? Most people, I'm going to pick on the 500 range because that's I just saw a lot of people comment that. But I'll pick on some other ones in a second. But most people who are in the 500 really can afford about a $350,000 to $400,000 property if they want to be the best in the market. So, all right, I'll take some questions on this topic because I think it's really important. But the lesson of the day, one of the lessons of the day is understand your purchasing power based on your cash on hand. West asks, hey, why spend that cash if you can finance those items? Because you might have a higher interest rate. I mean, yes, I think you could put a lot of stuff on credit cards, but you also have to put that into your pro forma as well. So it's not just like free money, right? Like you have to pay it back. So you're making these, so you're borrowing from your future, right? To pay off the stuff in the future, which can work, assuming the property is going to cash flow. But unless you have a 0% interest credit card, which they exist out there, and you could totally do that. And people have done that before. Also, can you get a line of credit for, like $100,000? So you probably need most of it in cash. Now, you could do a credit card, like you said, like a no interest credit card for 12 months, or you could negotiate some sort of credits or concessions on the purchase price of the deal. So instead of just paying, let's say the property's listed for, 525, and instead of giving them 525, you say, I'm going to offer 525, but I want you to pay me $25,000 at the closing table. That will help offset some of these things too, which can increase your cash position. But the point remains the same. Understand that your budget is limited by the cash that you have available on hand. So if I have $100,000 in cash, I need to know, number one, what my financing is going to be. If I'm doing 10% down, okay, well, that's going to be helpful. If I'm doing 20% down, that's also a huge chunk of that money. So once I understand my financing and my down payment, then I can start to figure out, all right, cool. If I buy a $300,000 property and I do 10% down, that's $30,000, maybe 35 to 40 in closing costs. Okay. Then I'm left with $70,000. So if I'm doing just a quick rule of math, Kenny's 20% rule, remember that? So 300,000 times 20%, that's about $60,000. So my budget is going to be around $300,000, right? For $100K in cash on hand, if you want to be the top property in that market. It's that easy. Now, some of us, like the properties I'm going to show you, might spend a little bit more than that. Or maybe we luck out and we get to spend a little bit less than that. But I'm telling you, all things made equal, I want to learn some Latin, ceteris paribus, all things made equal, it's around that 20% rule if you want to be a top property. That's just a helpful back of the napkin, quick rule of thumb. Somebody says, if you have $200K in cash to invest, what purchase price would you target? I would purchase around $700. Target some seller credits to apply. $700 is your magic. $700 to $800 best case scenario. I would do $600 to $800 would be my target range. I like a $200K range once you start getting up. Now, if your range is a little bit lower than that, I would say $350 to $500. It doesn't have to be this $200K difference, but that's just my rule of thumb. So anyway, good question, but that's typically what I tell most of our clients is between, for you, 600 to 800 would be maybe your range, depending on your financing. If you come to me and you say, I'm doing 20% down or 25% down, then your range drops, right? Because, you got to do the math there. If you're going to spend 20% of 700,000. So what's that? 140. So if you're going to do 140 in cash, that leaves you with $60,000. That's not really a lot to furnish and everything. We really got to put an emphasis on the furnishing and the investing in the amenities, because that is what makes people money in this industry today. Okay. All right. 10% down. Somebody said, no, but I'm a Gator, Pace Morby, and we use other people's money. Cool. Yeah, but at what terms? And then 10% down, second home loan commit. Yeah, so same 600, 800, Tanner. All right, let's keep moving. So we understand our budget now. We sat on that, and we can, move on from that. So let's talk about finding markets. This is really, really important. So you have to have, when you're trying to find deals in 30 days or less, you have to be clear. You have to be very clear on, number one, what your target purchase price range is. Okay. It's all about creating the buy box, which is one of the strategies I'm going to talk about in a second. But number one, know your budget. Number two, know the markets. Okay. So how do we know the markets? Do we go on Facebook and type in, hey guys, where's everybody investing today? How do you think that's going to go over? Terrible, right? Because everyone's going to tell you the markets they're looking in, which is a heap of garbage. And you're going to be chasing the herd. That's why I call it chasing the herd, meaning following everybody to where they're investing, which you're not going to find good returns there. So we need to be ahead of the curve, ahead of the gang, ahead of the herd, and know the markets that are out there that are doing really well. So how do we figure that out? There's a couple strategies I like to employ, but let me just, for the sake of time, give you the cheat code, because you guys just like straight up answers, right? Instead of me beating around the bush. All right. So in my experience of doing this, I have found some top attributes, or key attributes, I should say, of top performing markets around the country. So the top attributes that I love are, number one, the best markets are typically drivable. Okay. What that means is they are People, they're going to be near a major city. When I say near, that's point number B, which is 3 to 4 hours. I prefer 2 to 3 hours, but that's fine. 3 to 4 hours of a major city. And they're not typical destinations that people would fly into. So for example, okay, here's some fly-in markets. We have Nashville, Tennessee. We have Scottsdale, Arizona. We have most of your like urban markets would be considered fly-in markets. Sure, people can drive to them, right? Like people drive everywhere. But drivable markets are more like your markets that are a little bit more remote, or for example, near national parks, or so for example, let me think, like Yellowstone. Most people don't fly. They might fly into a near city, but then they drive to the national park, right? National parks, state parks, mountain markets, okay, most ski markets, except maybe like Colorado, like the ones that aren't as popular, the ones, you know, that aren't like everyone can rattle off that they know, like Vail and maybe Park City, Utah, like those are fly-in markets, right? But you could argue, for the most part, ski markets are drivable, and ski markets do perform pretty well. Lake markets, for example, are very drivable. Most lake markets, with the exception of Lake Tahoe, are pretty much drivable too. Most people drive to these markets. And so I love drivable markets because they tend to be more affordable for the people near them, and they generate year-round, well, not, excuse me, let me be careful with that. Not necessarily year-round traffic, but they generate repeat year-round traffic. So for example, everybody, wherever you're at, wherever you're from, your, you know, location you're at, you know that local spot that everybody likes to vacation to from your area. So for example, right now I am in Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh, North Carolina, we have the mountains, so people go to Asheville, North Carolina. Or what's closer to us, because Asheville is about 4 hours away, what's closer to us is Wilmington and Topsail Beach, and technically the Outer Banks too. But most people from Raleigh, from my experience and short experience living here, to be fair, go to the coast of North Carolina, right? Like that's the place they go to, and they go every single year to the same exact places. When I lived in Buffalo, New York, we had, oh my gosh, I'm already forgetting, like Lake Erie, and people would travel. We had Lake Ontario, and people would travel up there. And we also had Allegheny State Park, which is in Pennsylvania. People love that area. And we had the Finger Lakes. And so there were places that people went to every single year that were drivable from our metropolitan areas. Okay. Those markets are the most underrated, the most underserved, and usually the best markets to go to. Okay. And the reason why is because not everybody knows about them. Not everybody is talking about them. Some of them have blown up, but most of them haven't. Did you guys know that there's over 12,000 vacation markets in the United States? Can you name all 12,000? Because I certainly can. I'm supposed to be the markets guy. So there are a ton of hidden gems out there that I don't even know about that meet these criteria of drivable within 3 to 4 hours of a city, near traffic drivers. Like obviously we want to invest in markets that have stuff going on near them, right? So whether it's beach, lake, mountain, ski, river, like whatever, water is usually a big one. Okay. We want traffic drivers, state parks, national parks, love the parks. Okay. And then let's talk about this properties with revenue and what that means. So properties with revenue, this is very important. There's a lot of markets that check the first 3 boxes, but they don't check the 4th box, which is meaning that there's properties currently in that market creating high revenue numbers. So one of the biggest things that people struggle with, especially with a new market, is like if I told you, for example, Allegheny State Park in Pennsylvania, most of you are like, where the freak is that? Or like, what? You know, like, where is that? Why would people go there? How many people go there? Like all these questions that you may or may not be able to Google and figure out on your own. But the real question is like, what is true demand there? And what are people willing to pay? Well, we don't know the exact answer to that question. But what we do know, and is a correlation and a reflection of demand, are revenue numbers, meaning how much do properties in that market generate? That's a reflection of demand, right? Based on current supply, what is demand willing to pay? And we could say ADR, average daily rate, but really it's gross revenue is what I'm looking at. So if I look at a market and there are 0 properties making over, let's say, $200,000, do I think there's going to be a lot of demand there? It depends on the purchase price. If my budget's $800,000 and I don't see any properties generating over, 200K, I would be a little bit worried about that and skeptical of the market. Now, if my budget's 300K or 400K or 500K even, and there are no properties doing over 200K, I'm not worried about that because my target, my goals are a little bit lower. I might be looking at 120 to 150. Are there properties in the market doing that? If they are, then yeah, it's probably a good market, meaning that there's demand there to support higher revenue numbers to hit the goals that you guys are looking for. Somebody let me know in the chat, does that make sense when I talk about properties with revenue? Meaning I go and I look for properties. When I'm checking out a new market, I look for properties in that market, just gross revenue numbers that hit a specific target. So whether it's 200K or 300K, whatever that is, if I'm trying to buy a big property that's over $1 million, which a lot of the properties I do now, they're all over, they're going to be $1 million or more. I'm looking for properties that generate 300K in that market to know it's possible. And that's what you guys should start with. Don't just pick random markets out of your hat or from Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. Do the research, understand the traffic drivers, and then look for the nearby properties with revenue to do that. Now, let me ask you guys another question, and I can show you, but for the sake of time, I want to know, do you know how to find properties with revenue in those markets? Or do you want me to show you? Let me know in the chat if you want me to show you or I can keep moving. Because I haven't gotten, I'm about to get into my strategies, but I haven't got to my strategies yet. You guys let me know. Do you want me to show you how to pick a random market and find properties that generate the revenue targets we're looking for? Does anyone need to know it? Someone asks, is AirDNA reliable to see the potential revenue? For this question, yes, it is. Okay. Okay. There's everyone saying, please show us. All right. Okay. just curious. Let me show you how to do it for free without an AirDNA subscription. Okay. We're going to pull up strinsights.com. Okay. You're going to click this start today. You don't even need an account to figure this out. All right. Now you're going to click start today. It's going to take you to this tool that says property analyzer. Okay, 100% free. You can use it. strinsights.com. Start today. Let me go back there. Start today. I moved through that pretty quickly because I do this all the time, so I apologize. But strinsights.com. Start today. Boom. Property analyzer. Okay. Now next, you need to put something in. So the property analyzer, the point of it is you put in an address, you put in a bedroom count or guest count, and it tells you comps or revenue. Cool. But you need an address. So let's say someone put in the chat a random vacation market anywhere. I don't care. Doesn't matter. Anybody? Random vacation market you want me to do the example on? This is going to take me like 10 seconds to do. So I just need to know a market. Big Bear Lake. Oh, goodness. Okay. Brett, I can tell you the answer is yeah, that's fine. But I like sorry, I'm getting a lot of different ones here. Let's do Massanutten. Most people don't know about Massanutten. That's a really random place. People know about Fredericksburg, maybe Olympic Valley. That's interesting. Boone, Greenville, Ashford. Ashford's interesting. Okay, all right. We're getting a lot of examples. I'm getting off topic. I'm just going to pick Massanutten because most people don't know about that market. So back up, Kenny's budget. What are my goals? I want to know if, let's do something relevant to you guys. Let's say budget's around 600. Okay, that seems like a good median for the chat here. So let's say 600, and I want a property that can gross a minimum of 120. Okay, that would be pretty good. I would have a pretty good high cash flow and cash on cash return. So minimum gross revenue of 120. Number one, are there properties in this market that can generate 120? We're going to reset. I've got all these filters on. Sorry. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. So here's Massanutten. Okay. Now I know nothing about this market. Well, I do, but just for the sake of putting myself in your shoes, you don't need to know anything about this market where the best places are to invest yet. You just need to know, is this a market I should even be looking in? Because this is going to save you time. So we're going to go into the middle of Massanutten here, and we're just going to grab a random address. Okay. I don't care about the property. I don't care about the looks of it. I don't care about the purchase price. I don't care about anything. I just need a central address that's in this market that I think is central, I should say. So I'm going to copy this address. And I know this says Mackeyville, but it's part of Massanutten. Okay. So we're going to put in this address here, and Google's going to correct it for me. And now what I want to do, there's a couple things I can do. Okay. I can go in and I can put bedroom counts, or I can put in guest counts. But I'm going to do bedroom counts based on my budget. So let's go back here, and I'm going to put in my budget. So let's say my budget was $600,000. Now, with the current markets, you don't put in your top end of your budget at $600,000. You put a little bit above it so that in case, you can negotiate down on purchase price. For the sake of keeping this easy, I'd probably do 625, but I'm just going to do 650 and leave it here. So now what I want to do is go over to the sort function and click sort based on bedrooms to see the highest bedroom count I can afford in this market. So it looks like I can do 5 bedrooms and obviously a lot of 4s. Okay, use your noggin here in terms of like knowing, like if this is a trailer for a 5 bedroom, it's probably not going to make a good short-term rental, right? So the reality is this probably could. It looks nice. So maybe I can afford 5 bedrooms in Massanutten. So I'm going to go over back to my tool, and I'm going to click, just for kicks and giggles, 4 and 5 bedrooms. I can do multiple bedroom counts here. I'm going to hit search. Okay. It's going to give me a random radius, and it's going to pull comps. All right. Now, it's going to pull comps based on bedroom count and giving me at least 3 comps. Some markets, the radius will be, if you can tell here, it'll be at least a mile. Other markets, it could be like 5 miles, 10 miles. It just doesn't matter. But really what I want to do is I want to match what I see in Zillow for my market radius to what STR Insights is showing. And all I have to do is just increase my radius. So it's probably like 3. That might be too big. Okay, that's fine. For the sake of arguments, 2 or 3, whatever. It's fine. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time doing this exercise in you either when you go through this. So my question, going back to the beginning again, without looking at the data, without looking at the properties, without doing anything, is based on what I can afford, are there properties at that 650K mark or less that could potentially generate, based on demand, 120? Okay, what's my answer? Yes or no? Well, using my brain here, 284, 198, 157, 126, 126, 117. So yes, there's plenty of properties that can do that. So this is potentially, based on my goals and my budget, an investable market for me. Boom. Okay. Now I can start diving in deeper. I have found a potentially good market. All right, let's keep moving. That's how I do that, by the way. So that's point D. Finally, point E, and this is very important. Local resources. Oh, hey, Kim. How you doing? Kim was at Massanutten last night. Cool resort. It's a ski resort, so definitely a market to check out, everybody. Local resources. What I mean by this is, are there cleaners, handymen, maintenance people? Here's my quick rule of thumb. Go on Google, type in, or Turno, which is an app that you can use to find cleaners. Google or Turno. If you can't find a cleaner in 10 minutes or a cleaning company in 10 minutes in that market, I wouldn't invest in that market. Okay. Imagine finally finding a cleaner and then having to fire the cleaner and try to find someone else. How much time and effort and energy you're going to spend on that? That is super risky, probably in the middle of nowhere. Would not invest in that market. That's like my catch-all rule of thumb. Quick one doing that. Okay, I'll take a few questions and then we're going to move through again. So someone asks, what's the website again? So it is, sorry, I flew through that. It is Turno.com. There we go. Turno. Boom. This website right here. So, and you can like search cleaners and for hosts, find new cleaners and find cleaners there. Okay. Now that doesn't mean you necessarily have to use the app or their services, but it just tells you cleaners that can upload in there. Okay. So there's a couple questions. Let's hit them. Is the average revenue listed for 4 or 5 bedrooms or for all listings in those areas? So it is for the 4 or 5 bedrooms. Okay. But I don't care about the average because we're not average, right? If we're going to invest 20% of our of the purchase price into the property, you better bet your boxers we're not going to be average. We're shooting for top 10 or even top 1% in that market. So this number right here could care less. It's more about these numbers here, the individual top performing properties, because we are going to go in and make a really cool, badass property that's going to stand out from the competition. Because that was a lot lower. That is a lot lower, but I don't care about the number. Okay, Tanner asks, what are your tips and tricks for making sure those revenue numbers are correct when looking at their listings? So I'll look at the review dates. I'll look at their calendars. And then I'll also use this really cool thing called property profile to see what, if I see occupancy is at 100% for like every single month or like a few months in a row, that's a red flag. So you can use this to see. So like this one looks very legit just from this page, but I would look at the reviews and their calendars as well. Okay, what's the website again? Turno, which I just showed you earlier. Okay, cool. All right, we're good. All right, let's keep moving. I'm not even in my strategies yet. All right, where are we? Oh, we're right here. Nope, we're here. Okay, last thing I want to tell you guys, last lesson on the markets, on the market finding. So I see a lot of very random markets across the country. I love it. However, some of the markets listed, and I'm not going to pick on them. Maybe I will later. Maybe at the end of this, you can ask me what I think of some markets, and I'll give you my professional opinion. But are you the first, the second, or the last to enter into that market? You never want to be the first one to try something out because that's risky. That's called gambling. Okay. Hey, I'm the first one here. I'm going to try something that nobody else has done before, and let's see what happens. That's called gambling. Now, people can win a lot of money when they gamble, right? You've heard about it. But people can also lose a lot of money too. And that's exactly what happens when you gamble. However, when you're the last one to do what everyone else is doing, do you think you're going to make a lot of money? No. So when we're the last one to enter into a market that everybody else, like for example, Orlando, to pick on a market, even though I just said I wouldn't, Orlando is very popular. A lot of people invest in Orlando. So you going into there now because everyone else did it, you would be called a laggard or late majority and like being in this tech adoption timeline. So think about markets this way. When I go into a market, how many short-term rentals are there? How competitive? How many people are talking about it? How many people are trying to perform at this high level? There are some markets, like for example, there's a market that I'm in New York where my property is the only one with a hot tub in a lake market. How crazy is that? A lake market, the only one with a hot tub. And when you talk to the other hosts there, they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with trying to figure out how to clean it. It's always some excuse as to why they don't have it. But if you go to other big popular lake markets, everybody has a hot tub, and that's a standard, or even mountain markets. So I'm looking for markets where I can stand out, but the revenue numbers are there. I'm not the first one to prove the model. I'm the second one, right? I find, wow, there's some top performers here. How can I beat that or do what they're doing based on current purchase prices? Those are the markets I love to invest in. And those are the places where you're going to find deals a lot faster than really big popular markets that everybody knows about. Like Destin. Sorry, John. So anyway, we're moving on. Okay, let's get into the actual strategies. One other question, Brett says, gross revenue includes cleaning fees. STR Insights revenue does not include cleaning fees, right? That is correct. Okay, so, and that was just for Brett. I can answer that later if we want to talk about that, but that's just more mechanics. Let's talk about this moat concept. So when we're looking for deals, this is very important and something I've just really learned and really pushed in the last year. When we're looking for deals, our properties have to stand out. Okay. I know that's like a duh statement, but it's not just design and decor that make our properties stand out. We have to have something that separates us from the competition, and I call it a moat. Okay. So moats can be different things. It could be location. It could be proximity. It could be the type of property. It could be your amenities that you have or the features of the property. So for example, I have a client who bought a property in Asheville, North Carolina, literally sits on like 2 acres of land. All the other short-term rentals there don't have 2 acres of land. And if they do, it's all like on a hillside. His is very flat. He has like some views, but not much. But he just loaded that entire 2 acres of land with amenities. Absolutely killed it. He's doing really good. And when you look at it, it's like, it's a cool looking property, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to go buy that property in Asheville, North Carolina because it didn't have views. People passed on it because it wasn't sexy. But because of the lower purchase price and what he was able to do with the amenities on the land that nobody else had, he has a moat, and he's doing over $210,000 a year, and he bought the property for $720,000. Those deals exist even in more popular markets, but it's because people are able to look for attributes that the property has that can separate them from the competition, like land or privacy or space. Those are really big, or water features. So one of the properties I have in Kentucky has literally 2 ponds on it. One we don't use for anything. It's more just for, hey, there's a pond over here. The other one we do. We actually cleared it out. We made a little beach, a little dock. You can fish on it. You can kayak on it. You can stand up paddleboard on it. All kinds of cool things you could do on that property. We leverage the pond. Most properties don't have a usable pond on their property. And then we have a pool and 2 hot tubs and all the other cool amenities. And I'll show you that property later. But the reality is we are looking for properties that give us the potential to stand out where other people can't just replicate the exact same things. What is moat abbreviated for? Nothing. It just means moat, like a moat, like a castle moat. So sorry, I didn't get creative. Maybe Johnny, you can come up with an abbreviation for it and give it to me, but I'm not that creative. So, but a moat is just like it is, something that separates you from your competition or your enemy, essentially, to help protect you and insulate you against competition, increasing supply into the markets. Because let me let you in on a secret, everybody. If you figure out how to be successful, guess what's going to happen? Your property is going to pop up here in STR Insights, and everyone's going to see your revenue, and they're going to be like, "What the heck is this guy doing?" And then they're going to go in and they're going to try to find the exact same property and add the exact same stuff to it. And then to get the same result. People are naturally lazy. So how do we combat that? We find unique opportunities. Okay. I know that's really broad. So let's actually dive into how to find unique opportunities. So number one, look in under the radar markets. Okay. So let's talk about that, because this is really, most people just look in the same places everybody else is looking, and you get the same results, meaning bad deals. We're looking in under the radar markets that, like I described earlier, if you're looking for under the radar markets, okay, I can just tell you the markets. I know you just want to know the markets. All right, I told you the attributes of those markets, but here's a list of 84 under the radar markets that you probably didn't have at the top of your head. If you want to download this list for free, you can, I don't know if you can, if some of you are on your phones, you're not gonna be able to scan a QR code. But if you go back to our site, STR Insights, and you go to data and tools, and you click this top markets report, you can literally, I will send you this, just put in your information. I already have your email, so it doesn't matter. So put in your email, and it will send you the report for free. And it's a list of 84 markets based on budget and destination type. Really, really helpful. Almost all of them are under the radar markets. Definitely worth checking out. But if you want to find a deal in 30 days or less, you have to be looking in the right places. That's it. That's as simple as it is. It's not I can pray and hope something pops up in the Emerald Coast or Orlando or Smoky, and all these markets are different, or Big Bear or Lake Tahoe or Scottsdale or whatever. But the reality is, it probably won't. And you're going to spend too much time and energy looking in those areas when you could have just been looking at under the radar markets, near those markets even, that you didn't even know about, that are in this list, or meet those attributes I was just talking about earlier that work. That is the number one strategy for finding deals, is number one, looking in the right markets, under the radar markets. You want the QR code? There it is. It's also on the site, strinsights.com. I'll leave it there for a second. Sorry. See if there's any questions. Somebody said, Andrew Keller, according to ChatGPT, oh, he did the acronyms. Memorable design, outstanding guest experience, amenities that wow, tailored experience. I feel like tailored experience and outstanding guest experience are the same, but you tell me. But I like it, Andrew. We're on to something here. Maybe you'll help me out with that. But okay, let's go back. Let's talk about days on the market. So cool. Now that you guys are like awesome, I feel better about knowing what markets I should invest in, or I have a list and I have action items of going to try to replicate this. Now let's get into the nitty gritty of where to look and what to look for. So the best way for me to show you how to do this is to just show you examples, because if I just talk about it, you guys will be like, that's cool, but we need to see it. I'm a visual person. So if you're visual, you're going to love this. If you're not, I think you'll still love it too. So let me show you some examples of this. Okay. So this is a property I bought in Kentucky. This is Frankfort, Kentucky. This is on the Bourbon Trail. A lot of people come here and they drink bourbon and they have a good time. And they're all, like big vacation market. So I knew, number one, I knew this was a good market. We're between Louisville and Lexington. It's drivable, meaning people would fly into Louisville and then they drive in to do the Bourbon Trail. So, it's kind of like the Napa Valley but for bourbon. Okay. So it's a drive-in market. It's 3 to 4 hours, or like an hour really, of two major cities. Local resources. There's Airbnbs. There's Airbnbs doing over $300,000 a year here, checking all those boxes of the markets. Okay. Well, this property, I see this property, it's been on the market for 149 days. Nobody's taken a second glance at it because it's been on the market for so long. And first off, one of the things I love to do when I go in Zillow and look for deals is I will search by the max days on market. Okay. There's two key ways to increase your ROI for any deal. Number one, it makes more money. All right. And that's what everyone's saying. How can I increase revenue? How can I make more money? How can this property generate more bookings? But the other way that I rarely hear people talk about is buying properties with lower expenses, right? Like it costs less. Therefore, your mortgage payments are less. Therefore, it makes more money with the current revenue. So the reason why I really like this strategy of looking for properties that have been sitting on the market for a while is because you come in with a lot of negotiating power. You not only can drop the purchase price, but you can get credits or concessions to offset a lot of the cash you have to put into it. There's no multi-offer situations. If you're looking to do a cost segregation before the end of the year, so are thousands of other people too. Okay. Our phone, like I can't tell you how many people are trying to schedule calls to be like, hey, help me find a property, because they're rushing. We're headed into this part of the year where people are like panicking to buy a property. And you might be feeling that pressure too. But the number one thing that they're not doing when they're looking on their own is they're going to Zillow, and Zillow is showing you the top results based on homes for you, which rarely has to do with days on the market. So I love going in and looking for days on the market. I think there's a setting. Where is it? Days on Zillow. Okay. And I will look to see the properties that have been sitting on Zillow for the longest because I can get the better terms. I know we had some Gator to Pace Morby's people. They do creative financing. Okay. That's what they're doing to find deals is they're looking for properties that have been sitting forever that people cannot sell to get favorable terms for creative financing. You can also do this too for really good short-term rentals. And so some people price their properties way too high and they sit. Maybe they think it's still 2021 or, the sellers do, or maybe they have extenuating circumstances and they have to sell it at that. So let's talk about this property here again. So this property was sitting on the market for 1.3 million. And in its current state, it was not worth 1.3 million. But the seller had a problem. He had, I don't know how you do this, but he had 3 mortgages on the property. So basically, there were 3 banks involved in the transaction, meaning that whenever we offered on the property, it had to get approved by each bank so they'd understand what cut they would get before the property could be sold. And as you would, go figure, this property was headed to foreclosure. So the seller is very motivated to get rid of the property and move on and not have to declare bankruptcy and have a foreclosure on his record. And the banks are motivated to sell the property and cut their losses. But at the same time, they also don't want to just lose money because they could put it in foreclosure and auction it off and see what they get. So what did we have to do? We had to negotiate. But we were able to get this property for $1 million. All right. And it's a 9-bedroom, 7-bath. You can see it. But the point being is it was on the market forever because it was priced way too high and was just sitting there. It was in a good location, like a really, really good location. Okay. I had the 2 ponds. This is one of the ponds that we use. And it was sitting on 5 acres and it already had a pool. Tons of people were looking at this market, but they're not looking for these, like, I call it fugly, right? Like, you can, if you don't know what that means, just Google it. Fugly with an F. So this house is fugly. It doesn't look good, but we can change that. We can change ugly. We can change unattractive. We can paint. We can, read side or whatever, like even the inside, like making updates. We can change the cosmetics. So when we're looking for deals, we have to look beyond what we're physically seeing and more focus on the attributes of that property, whether it's location, whether it's the amenities it currently offers, or the characteristics of that property. That's really, really important when we're trying to find deals. Okay, so somebody says, how do you look up outstanding mortgages on a property as a public record? It is. We didn't know that until we started talking to the agent about the property. So the seller's agent about the property, though. So, because we were like filling them out to know how much of a low offer or low ball them we could go. Somebody says, Lydia says, in the report by investment, is that the cash on hand you have? I'm assuming not the purchase price. I don't. Oh, yes. Sorry. I know what you're talking about now. Sorry. Back up. That's my bad. Yes. That's the cash you have on hand. That's not your purchase price. That's a specific answer for Lydia, not for anyone else. That was something we talked about earlier. Okay, cool. Let's keep moving. So what attributes did this property have? And also we added a few things to it, by the way, but this property was a 9-bedroom, 7-bath. It was 9,400 square feet. It had a private pond, and we added the fish and the kayaks and the paddle boards. It had a 3-car garage that we could convert. We converted it to a game room. It already had a built-in theater room. It already had a pool, and we heated it. It already had a gym. It already had a yoga studio. It didn't have hot tub. Well, it had 1 hot tub, and we added a 2nd hot tub. We added a mini putt-putt. We added frisbee golf. We added a putting green, and then it had a fire pit, and we just made it look better. So a lot of these things were already there. So why the heck was it sitting on the market for 149 days? Because it was ugly, and it was sitting on the market for so long. Properties that sit on the market, you're always like, what's wrong with it, right? But that's like, those are the questions that the 90 and 95% of investors who are trying to rush in and buy anything that looks good aren't going to dive in and try to figure out. That's how we're finding deals so fast. I know it sounds counterintuitive because then you got to stop, you got to pick up the phone, and you got to start making phone calls, right? But the more inquisitive you are and the more research you do on these properties, not the markets. Sure, do your research on the markets, but I'm talking about like diving in and figuring out these like puzzle piece properties. Like when I say puzzle piece, like I'm always like, look, this is a really confusing deal. It's ugly and it's got all these like things I like about it. But how do I figure this out? Like, how do I make it work? And not like force it to work, but like, is there a way to make it work? And what does that look like? Those are going to be your best deals. Okay. What else do I have here? All right. So this property is already in action. I'm about to show you the revenue numbers and everything, but to give you the numbers. So we purchased this for $1 million. We were able to convince we did have real estate agents. We convinced them to both drop their commission down to 1% to make the deal work. Talk about that later if you want to, but just for the sake of time, that we financed. So we did a 10% down. So it's $100K down with $14K in closing costs. Our furnishing amenities were $300K, and then we spent about $50,000 in renovation. So all in, you're at $350 plus $440. So all in $440,000. Took about 5 months to get this thing up and going. Big property. I don't think I'll ever buy something that big again. It was big. This is the before. Remember the fugly? This is the after, right? We didn't even paint the outside, but we did some landscaping, made it look cleaner, obviously cooler. Okay. And then here are the numbers. So our projected revenue just from underwriting a deal, we're like, oh, we think we can do 250. Our break even on this property, 125. All right. I'll share some numbers in a second. Our expected cash on cash return, 25%. So $440,000 with a 25% cash on cash return. Okay. Our furnishing amenity cost, there it is, $300. And we launched in April of 2025. We got it reappraised for 1.6 million. What did we buy it for? $1 million. We put in $450,000, but we reappraised it for it got reappraised for 1.6. So we got a little bit of cushion there too. We have equity now from the improving the value of the property. On the books, this is actually a really old slide, and I'm about to tell you some updated numbers. So right now we have 195 on the books, or this was a month ago actually. In the month of July, we started cash when we launched this in April. We cash flowed in the month of April. We made money in April. We made like $20,000. In July, this last July, we grossed over $70,000. Guess what we grossed in August of this month, or what we will gross this month? We're at $75,000. Okay. April or September, I think, is like 40 or something around there. But obviously as we get closer, the dates are going to get booked up. So we are increasing. So the revenue is actually on pace to do $350,000, not $250,000. Okay. So we're actually well over 200K on the books right now in our first year. So amazing deal. All right. But slept on by so many people. So many people pass this property because it doesn't look the part. Sitting on the market, days on the market. I'm telling you guys, this is almost all the properties I buy have been sitting on the market for many, many, many days because people have passed on them. Somebody asked, am I doing Airbnb arbitrage? When I got started in 2017, I did Airbnb arbitrage. I do not recommend or encourage people to do that today. I'll just leave it at that. Sorry. I'm focused on acquisitions. And if you don't have money, we can talk about that, but it's not arbitrage. It's co-hosting, in my opinion. All right. So that is, and guys, it's 2:00. We're going to go over a little bit. Hopefully that's okay. This is also recorded, and you can access the recordings by going back to the link after this is done. And this is also on our YouTube channel at STR Insights in the live section. You can see this recorded in there as well. So you will have free access to watch the recording if you have to hop off. But we're going to hit the meat. So we just talked about days on the market strategy. Let's nail down the second strategy or this last one, because it's really important. So I love what I call buy boxes. Okay. So a buy box is what you can afford, where you're looking to target, and what your ROI goals are in a nutshell. The more specific your buy box is, actually, the easier it is to find a deal. For example, we are working with some clients actually, I don't know if I want to say this. I'm going to change the state because I don't know. I probably should ask permission before I tell you what their buy box is, but I will tell you a similar buy box in a different state. So I don't mess up whatever. I don't want them to find out I said something and they're like, Kenny, you just ruined it all. I don't know. They might not care, but I probably should ask permission before I spill the beans at all. But here's our buy box. Their budget is $350 to $500 lakefront properties, any lakefront properties in the state of Minnesota, and they are looking for properties that are at least 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and have a minimum of 1,400 square feet with their lakefront. That's it. That's their buy box. Okay. Their goals, they know if they can find a property that hits that specifications, they will gross at least 100K. At least 100K. All right. That is a very specific buy box. But for us, our team is searching and looking for these deals for these people. It's actually a really interesting scenario because most of the time I'm creating buy boxes for people, but they came to me with a specific buy box and they're like, look, we don't want to search we don't want to take the time to do the searching and call the municipalities and do all the legwork. You do that for us and we will obviously pay you, but we know what works here. Here's what works here. You do that legwork and bring us properties. Awesome deal. Let's do it. So that's what we're doing. That's our buy box. Very, very specific, right? 3 bedrooms, 1,400 square feet, 2 baths, minimum 1,400 square feet, has to be between a certain price point, and lakefront. Doesn't matter the lake. Okay. So they're open to their markets. All right. If you get too specific on your markets, you're going to have a harder time. But what I have found is that specific buy box, how easy is it for me to go into Zillow and just start, or Redfin or Realtor, and just start searching for properties, call realtors up. Hey, can you find me a property or just start sending me properties that meet this specific criteria. It's so much easier than going, hey, can you just send me like Airbnb deals in your market? Or can you send me stuff that you think will work? Like, no, like people try to do that, but that doesn't mean it's actually going to work. The more specific you can get through doing your research with your buy boxes, the better the result. Let's look at an example. Okay, I do have a question here. Can you go over if you have no money or less money than needed? Can you be more specific on that last part there? No money or more or less money than needed. Can you rephrase that question for me, if you don't mind? Okay, let's do an example of this whole buy box thing. So this is my Asheville property. I bought this. Okay, so this Asheville property, where is it? It's right here. All right, let's take a look at it. Okay, so it was listed at $975. It had been on the market for, did I put here in the notes? I didn't. Okay, it was on the market for like 80 days, something like that. So a while. All right, but when I was looking at Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains, right? We want properties with what? Views. That potentially, you don't have to have views, but that's an obvious option, right? We want properties that have views, and we look at the revenue. I'm going to kind of tell you my specific buy box that was for an Asheville at this time of last year. I bought this last year. Views. I wanted a property that was at least 5 bedrooms or more. I wanted it in proximity to Asheville because the closer you are to Asheville, the more money you make. Okay. And there were some other things like, I didn't want you had to have 4-wheel drive to get up to the property. I wanted it to be somewhat paved or whatever, a good area, all that good stuff. But the more specific I got, meaning like I wanted something that was at least 2,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet. And I'm able to search and then properties start popping up. But here's the thing. Let me go back to this. So when I'm looking at this property, this is the property before, okay? It's got a little creek here, which that doesn't matter. I don't even know where that is. These pictures are awful, by the way, but that doesn't matter. See, like I'm not focused on the quality of the pictures of the property. I'm focused on the attributes that it has. And so my buy box is very specific. And if I find a property that meets the criteria, I could care less what the photos, this is a sunset. Like, I don't even know what we're looking at here. I guess this is a sunset in the snow, but how awful are these photos? But I'm looking beyond that. And I'm like, holy crap, this has got some views. They're okay views, but what else? Okay, the interior, it's not like that great, but we can make changes that we can paint, we can redo the flooring, we can make it look better, right? So, and I should probably have pulled this up. Anyway, so long story short, we're looking at the property, looking at what we can do to improve it. And there's a lot of like, it's got the bones and the necessity. And what we found, look at that wallpaper. What we found in this property though, I want to go back to the views here because that was a big sticking point for me were the views. I was like, these views are good. They're better in person, but like, they're not that good. Right? They're not like the long range, wide open, beautiful. I mean, in the fall when all the leaves fall and everything, I mean, they're better, but I'm not looking for seasonal views. I'm looking for better views. But we looked at the lot lines of the property. I'm scrolling a little bit if I can. There we go. And here's the house, and the trees that block the view are all right here. So you actually own, it's a hillside. You're at the top of the hill. And all these trees over here are the ones that block the view. So what do we go? Well, if I own these trees, I can axe them. Not all of them, obviously. It's a jungle out here anyway, but I can cut all this stuff out and I can improve the view. When you're looking for deals, are you taking that extra step? Right? Like, are you taking your buy box and then are you going like, oh, well, I look at the property, it doesn't meet all the criteria because no property ever will, right? There's something you have to figure out. Are you looking at this going like, can I improve this somehow? What's the puzzle? What's the missing puzzle piece? Or how do I piece this together to make it work? And not every property is going to work. It's not, oh, cool, I found this one, it's going to work. I went through a lot before we finally found this one. But we were able to find it quickly because we were able to do the one step. And guess what? It was sitting on the market. We got over $75,000 in seller credits to offset some of the things we had to do with the property. Okay. I'm trying to show you the property before or the after, because it's really cool. Sorry, I should have had it pulled up, but I'm just going to go in. Oh, there it is. Okay. Nope. Lost it. There we go. So yeah, we're putting in a container pool, by the way. So I was surprised. That's why that's there. But this is the after. Okay. So I'll go back to the numbers in a second, but this is the after. But look at the views now. Much better, right? And obviously good photography. Look at the design. Okay. Much better views. We opened it up. We cleared out a bunch of the trees and all the garbage down here. And it's really beautiful. Every single photo, everything you can do in here has views. So there's a lot of stuff. All the rooms that face that way, they all have views of the mountains. You can see it. And so it's a really, really cool property. So let's take a look at our numbers. So our purchase price was $975. We got a $75,000 seller credit. Remember, we have to do construction, startup costs, the design, the amenities, all that good stuff. Okay. We ended up spending $175K, but if you subtract the $75K in seller credit, we're only all in at $195, which gave us a cash on cash or expected cash on cash return of 37.2%. Do I have a gross revenue? I don't. So we launched this property. Unfortunately, we bought this in July, and we're supposed to launch it in October of last year. And if any of you know what happened in October of last year in Asheville, a hurricane came and did some damage. So we had to hold off and launch in January. So we launched in January. Right now, we're on pace to do about 175 in our first year. With the pool, we should do over 200, but we're still on target to hit what our cash on cash return goals are and our cash flow goals. This is my smallest revenue producer one. The other ones I own in Texas, Arizona, they all produce over 300,000. So this is the stuff that we're looking for, even on those smaller scale. Okay, this isn't like we put way more money into the Frankfurt property. See, I didn't mean the Texas one. I meant the Frankfurt one. We put way more one in the Frankfurt property. But these are the types of deals that I'm looking for, where I don't have to put that much in, but I have to improve something about the property, fix the puzzle piece. And I'm looking for the property with the characteristics and the attributes of it. Okay, let's pause here. I'm going to take a sip. Does anybody have any questions, any other questions about this deal, about this strategy of nailing down your buy box to help you find something? What are all the attributes you need to find to create your buy box? Bedroom count, square footage. So it really depends on the market. Okay. Or the region that that something works. So Tanner, when you're trying to figure out your buy box, what you need to do is, let's take Massanutten, for example. When we're looking at the top performing properties, and you can go in a spreadsheet, what you need to do is view the listings and look at the attributes they have. Are they all ski chalets? Do they all have hot tubs? Do they all have views? Are they all a certain, obviously we did 4 and 5 bedrooms, but when you're searching for these properties, so if I'm searching for buy boxes, I actually remove the bedroom count and I look by guest count. Okay. And I'm like, show me properties that sleep 16 or more, 15, 14. And I can hit search here and it will show me. See, there's properties that aren't even 4 or 5 bedrooms. They're doing 300. I'd be curious to see these. We can take a look at them. $300,000. Let's see what these. Oh, it's okay. 2 cabins together. So that's actually a buy box. Taking 2 cabins and putting them together and renting them on Airbnb. This is a very unique buy box. So think about that for a second. Let's take, I know this is one example, but you could go into this market and find 2 properties that are next to each other for sale, and they don't have to have views. They don't even have to be that amazing, because obviously these ones aren't amazing, right? Look at the linens and stuff. And if they're next to I'm assuming they're next to each other. Okay. This one looks like it has an indoor pool though, so be careful on that. But the idea here though is they've put 2 cabins together, so they've created a huge mega compound essentially, where people can share. It's 12 bedrooms because they don't build 12 bedrooms here, And that allows them to not only make, 150, but triple or double, double what the rents would have been. So especially for those those individual cabins, because they're not very special besides the indoor pool one, probably. So like that would be a very unique buy box that you could look for in this market. So there's actually multiple buy boxes that work, but it depends on your budget. Can you afford 2 cabins next to each other? Are there 2 cabins for sale next to each other? Those are all questions we ask as we dive in and look. But it starts by looking at the top performing properties in the market and then diving in deeper from there to understand what specific attributes do really well. And that's how you figure out your buy box. Cool. What other questions we have? How do you get a seller credit? Oof. So seller credits are essentially money back at the closing table. Okay. You have to be very careful with seller credits. They can also be misconstrued with what we call seller concessions, okay, which go towards your closing costs. Seller credits are a separate addendum that you have with the seller that says, hey, Mr. Seller, I know you're listing your property at $950, but I want $20,000 that I can use towards improving the property at the closing table. So I will give you $950, but after you close, you're going to give me $20,000. Okay. So you're getting financing on the $950, but then the seller gives you $20,000 that you can use towards improving the property, which is very attractive for short-term rental hosts because they can use that to offset any improvements they need to make to the property. But you have to be very careful with using seller credits because it also could be considered mortgage fraud if you're doing it the wrong way, meaning you're pocketing the $20,000 that you were given and not using it to improve the property. The mortgage fraud in this instance would be you were tricking the bank into lending you $950, even though the property is only worth, whatever. So $930 in this case, if you're getting $20,000. So you have to use the credits towards improving the property. So I want to be very clear on that. Make sure that when you do seller credits, you work with an agent who understands what they are and how they can be used. And if they don't understand them, I either wouldn't use the agent or I wouldn't get seller credits. I would use seller concessions or I would drop the purchase price down so that everybody understands because it has to be put in the contract and it has to be done a certain way or it is legitimately mortgage fraud. So be very careful, but it is definitely possible and very doable. Just make sure you're doing it in a way that it is used to improve the property. Okay. Here's another really simple example that a lot of people actually do get seller credits. They just don't call them that. So let's say you put a property under contract for $1 million. You go through the inspections and there's just like problems. There's mold and the gutters are messed up and there's crap in them, or I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But there's obvious things that the seller needs to do to fix or that they should probably remediate themselves. And you're not going to buy the property unless it's remediated, right? Well, there's 2 options at this point. Number 1, the seller remediates it. You're like, go fix this. You need to fix this before I buy the property. All right. But the problem with that is the seller can do it whatever way they want, unless you pay for a reinspection, right? So what typically happens is I use mold, but I've seen other examples like things are broken and, like doors and whatever. And the seller's like, yeah, I fixed it. And then the buyer goes, I'll take your word for it, buys the house, but then they go and they show up and nothing was actually fixed. So to avoid that, what we do is we actually ask for credit. We say, look, we send in a contractor. The contractor gives us a quote, say it's $20,000 to fix all the things that need to be fixed. Well, Mr. Seller, instead of you having to worry about this, how about you just give me the $20,000 at closing table? I will fix this on my end, and you don't have to do that. That's very, very legitimate, very legal, above table, because you're using it to improve the property, right? And to fix those things. And you're also going to fix it the right way that with someone that you trust that's going to fix it, not the seller's guy or contractor, right? So that's typically how people do a lot of seller credits, but you can do seller credits before you even go under contract. And that's typically the best place to do it. So it really depends on the situation. So anyway, we could go into that for a while, but that's a high level gist of it. A lot of convo about independent residential homes. What about condos or condotels? I don't love them, Ryan. And the reason why is because I'm focused on cash flow. So are the properties that we're purchasing, do they cash flow? And in order to cash flow, going back to this again, the moat. What's the moat with a condo or condotel? Besides, you have all the fees, maybe the amenities, maybe the location, but there's also other condos. It's really hard to really separate yourself in a condo with a condo or a condotel than a single family home. So in my opinion, single family homes are one of the better investments for short-term rentals because you can come up with unique ways to improve revenue, whereas a condo, you're very limited. Now, I understand if you don't have a lot of capital and, it's like, okay, cool. I can just, I can afford a condo in a market I want to be in, but your revenue ceiling is capped. It's very difficult to break through that. Whereas residential single family homes, adding certain things or designs to the exterior of the property and improving the amenities is a lot easier. You can actually do that, which can improve your revenue. So that's why I don't really talk about condos. But the lessons can still be applied to the condos as well. Just know that you're kind of capped in it, what you can do. So, okay, cool. What else? Any other questions? We're going to wrap up here because I'm starting to get phone calls and other crap from people. So, all right. So let's recap. I don't have time to do the other one. Let's recap the 3 strategies because we've talked a lot about some different parts here, and I just want to recap all of this, and then I'll answer some other questions, and you can ask me about markets and so on. So, strategy number 1, days on, or actually is not in the right order. Strategy number 1 is under the market or under the radar markets. So knowing where to look in less crowded markets where people aren't typically looking. Okay. I gave you the resources. I told you the attributes. Go and find those markets. It's so much easier to find deals faster when you're looking in the right markets. Strategy number 2, I love to look for properties that have been sitting on the market for a while that I'm able to go in with higher negotiating power. And if I can figure out how to improve the property from there, that puzzle piece, remember the putting the puzzle pieces together, that really helps me create the moat. And also I can buy something that's maybe undervalued in the market at a lower purchase price. And then finally, strategy number 3 is identifying specific buy boxes, the key attributes and variables of properties that work in the markets. I did a couple of examples on that. So if you master these 3 strategies, finding deals becomes a lot easier. Okay. It doesn't make it simple. It doesn't make, I can find something tomorrow, but it makes it a lot easier when you apply those 3 strategies of looking in the right places and knowing what to specifically look for. Okay. I know that last point sounds super obvious. Oh, well, yeah, if I knew what to look for, I could buy it. Yeah. I mean, if you do your research, you can figure that out. It's as simple as that. So I hope you guys, so as we're kind of wrapping up here, what we're going to do is, I'll just kind of wrap up on this. So, number 1, I hope you guys found this helpful and valuable. All right. I know a lot of you do not have time to do this stuff. You just don't. And the reality is, like, you have to spend time because it's gotten a lot more competitive and there's a lot of people looking for good deals. So if you want my help, and if you're serious about it, especially if you've already joined a program that you probably paid for and you don't have a property yet, then we should probably work together and I can help you find a property. Okay. I am working one-on-one with some people this month in our program. Some of you, I see some of the people who've already joined it in the chat. So I can't wait to work with you. But for those of you who are on the fence about it, or you're hearing about it for the first time, I have 2 spots open where I'm working one-on-one with people. And if you're interested in it, I'm going to put my link in the chat here. You can schedule a call. Okay. And all you do is go to strinsights.com/Kenny and you can get some time on the calendar. Let's chat about it. Okay. This is a paid program. I get paid up front to do consulting, and I will work one-on-one with you, and I will find the deals for you and feed you deals and walk you through the entire process. So if you're interested in that, grab some time on my calendar. That's what I do. This is how I help people, is finding deal. Obviously teaching too. I love the teaching part. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to leave the QR code up here. I put the link in the, actually, I think I did a banner too. I'll put the banner. You guys see it. There you go. That's the website. There you go. That's the website to grab time on the calendar. So if you'd like to chat about it, grab some time. Let's chat about it. All right. If you have questions, if you want to know about markets, my opinion, I'm going to be very frank and to the point just for the sake of time so I can answer all the questions. please put your questions in the chat, and the rest of you watch the recording. The recording should be sent to you, or you can just go back to the link that you used to register and you'll be able to watch the recording if you've already registered. You obviously did because you're watching this. So let's go into the questions now. All right. Wait. Yep. Okay. I just want to make sure I hit them all. If I didn't catch a question earlier, just repost it and I'll try to get it again. Can you share a bit about financing strategy in terms of percentage down and what kind of loans you pursue? Depends on your situation, Teresa. If it's your first one, I'm careful when I say that. The less money you have into the deal, the better, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Okay. Other people are in different situations. If I was about to retire, I would not do a 10% second home down loan, right? I would try to do something with a higher percentage down because I don't want as much debt, but I'm younger. And so I want to leverage debt. So I'm trying to put as less down as possible. Where I'm personally at, and everyone's going to be different, I can't do second home loans. The bank will not, I'm not bankable. All right. I'm self-employed. I'm like, the bank's like, no, you don't make any money, even though I do decent and I have properties to prove it. But the reality is, according to the bank standards, I'm not bankable. So I do DSCR, 20% down. Okay. The commercial loans, those have been great for me. I get decent terms and we're good. So I love DSCR or using other people's money. So hopefully that is helpful. We have, I think I missed a question. I thought, okay, whatever. Yep. Tanner, look forward to working with you too. So it's going to be fun. Susan says, rock the moat. I love it. Thanks, Susan. All right. Laura from Raleigh. What part of Raleigh? Probably Cary, right? I'm in Raleigh as well. I'm hoping to stay with NC for a second STR. Thoughts on Cary, Apex, Wilmington, Boone, etc. Okay. Wow. You got Cary, Apex, which is like urban or suburban. Wilmington, which is beach, and then Boone, which is mountain. That's a really easy one to screw up, to be honest. So, geez, those are tough markets. I think Cary Apex is actually going to be like near impossible because it's already really expensive. And your gross revenue there is like maybe $100,000 tops. So, if you find something like 500 to 650, but then it better have a pool and it better be really nice. And those are probably going to be 800,000 or more homes now in Cary Apex area. So not really my favorite to go to. Also neighbors, and there's a lot of risk with that. So Wilmington and Boone. Wilmington could be good, but the beach houses have gotten really expensive and insurance costs have gone up too. So I would try to find like a fixer upper, and like something like where you have to put in money to improve the property. Please don't buy a condo in Wilmington. Boone is probably the best market you have on here for that you've listed. Ski market. Proximity views is going to be really important. I think there's some opportunity there. So, and then I don't know what your budget is, but I would throw out, the rest of Western North Carolina as well, or not throw out, but include in your list parts of Western North Carolina around Asheville too. Those are going to be your better parts of North Carolina. But North Carolina's gotten very competitive. So just be smart about where you look. Cass said, I'm selling in CA and would love to hear your take on Round Top, Texas. Where is Round Top? Round Top, Texas. Hill Country? Ooh, this looks like it's in the middle of nowhere. It's it's Hill Country. No. San Antonio. Oh, no. What? I don't know where Round Top is. It is Hill Country, Brandon area. So this is a really good example. Going back to the whole like markets thing. Where is it? Local resources. I would check in with your local to see if there's local resources there, because there might not be in Round Top. I just Googled where that is. But the Hill Country, it's a tough market too. It's a really tough market. I would, if you're selling and you're going to do a 1031 exchange, which is I don't know, but it sounds like you're going to. I probably would open up to multiple markets and not just one area because it's going to be hard finding a deal in the Texas Hill Country. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Can you do it in 45 days? You're going to need a really good realtor and you're going to need to know exactly what to look for and how to run your numbers because there is a lot of stuff for sale there that's absolute garbage. It's all overpriced or you have to put a lot of money into it. So be very cognizant. I would open up to other markets too if I was in a 1031. Do any of key markets outside of Nashville? So it's so tricky there. I mean, it's because the run up in prices around Nashville has gotten like crazy with all the move-ins. Cassie, I probably would. What's really interesting. I don't know what your budget is, Cassie, but let me do a map real quick. Okay, we're gonna go over to Nashville. All right, so there's some lakes. So you're really talking about lake markets. I don't know what this lake is, but I know this is one. Maybe along here, it's tricky. I know this is like a river lake, but there's also this like Kentucky lake, which is on the Kentucky-Tennessee border, that has some really good opportunities as well, and not many people talk about it. Very seasonal though, obviously summertime, right? But this is another like affordable lake market that nobody really talks about. That's really good. I've seen some good potential in this area. So I would definitely consider like this Kentucky lake market. So let's see. High current comments. You're in Cary. Guessed it. Let me guess. You're not from North Carolina either. That's okay. I'm not either. So join the club. Jade Park said, what do you think about Columbia, Georgia? What are the factors I should consider before choosing this market? So Columbia, Georgia is very, very cheap. Like it's very affordable, but the revenue is really low as well. I would say it's more of like a long-term, maybe a midterm rental market than a short-term rental market. I don't know why someone would spend amount of time. Flips could potentially, it's just the prices of homes are just worth nothing there. But your revenue is like, cool, I gross $30,000 or $40,000. What's your cash flow? It's just not a high revenue market. And so Jade, like we did earlier with the, and I don't know what your budget is, so that could work for you, but it just won't work for most people. That's why I'm kind of just generalizing that. But what we did here with the property analyzer, just throw in some addresses in Columbus and see what the general, or Columbia, excuse me, not Columbia. Sorry, I'm seeing. Did you mean Columbus, Georgia, or Columbia, South Carolina, or Columbia? I'm not familiar with Columbia, Georgia. Where is that? I was speaking on Columbus. Oh, near Augusta. Is that what you're talking about? Augusta, Georgia? You're good. Oh my Jade. Jade, let me know if you're talking about Augusta, Georgia, because that's what I feel like. Also, do you use a buyer's agent? No, I use a buyer's agent. Sometimes I do talk to the seller's agent if I want to get like quick, fast responses, but the buyer's agent is going to help me like represent me, which is really important with any transaction. Moat, great, thank you. Memorable, okay. Kim's figuring out memorable, optimized, aesthetic, tribe. What is tribe? What? Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia, or other places in Virginia better than it, and better than those I mentioned in North Carolina. Lake Anna, Shenandoah, Massanutten, Mackeyville, Boise. Those are all great. Virginia is better, in my opinion, right now. Oh, nice. You moved from Colorado. Let me know where from Colorado. I lived in Denver for a while, like North Denver area, like Thornton and Broomfield. So, Columbus. Okay, good. I was like so confused. I was like, are you all right? Jade said Columbus, Georgia. Yes. So what I was talking about earlier was Columbus, Georgia. It's very cheap, very affordable, but also revenue is really low. I would just be careful. I actually talked to some property managers last week at the STR Wealth Conference who manage like 40 properties in Columbus, Georgia, and they're looking to get out because the revenue just isn't there. So, but if your budget is low, then it can work. It just probably would lean towards more of it a long-term rental market than a short-term rental market. Okay, cool. Well, everybody, I think we're kind of wrapping up on the questions here. Once again, feel free to grab some time on the calendar. I put the link there, and I've got, I'm going to go back to the banner one more time. That's the link. Just go to strinsights.com/Kenny and grab some time on the calendar and let's chat. It was nice to see everybody and those who I'll be working with in the next few weeks. Look forward to speaking to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this workshop. I'll do some more in the future, and hopefully you guys can start applying the things. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next